The Star Wars galaxy stretches far beyond the conflicts of the Jedi and Sith, encompassing countless civilizations, each with its own history, culture, and ambitions. These societies have shaped the course of galactic history, influencing politics, trade, war, and philosophy. Some have endured for millennia, holding fast to ancient traditions, while others have risen and fallen like empires built on shifting sands. The Republic, the Empire, and even the Jedi Order itself have all been shaped by the civilizations that inhabit the galaxy, their struggles and triumphs interwoven into the fate of the stars. Many know the core worlds as the political and economic heart of the galaxy, a place where planets like Coruscant, Alderaan, and Guerrilla set the course for billions. These worlds, rich in industry and wealth, have long dictated the laws of trade and governance. Yet, beyond the gleaming spires and bustling hyperlanes of the core, entire regions remain untouched by their influence. The mid-rim and outer rim territories host cultures as diverse as the Togruta of Chile, the industrious Sulastans, and the warrior clans of Mandalore. Each of these societies contributes in its own way, whether through technological advancements, military strength, or spiritual traditions. Trade has long been the lifeblood of galactic civilization, connecting distant star systems and fostering interplanetary cooperation. From the Hutt-controlled hyperspace routes of the Outer Rim to the bustling trade hubs of Cato Neimoidia, commerce has forged alliances and fueled rivalries. Some civilizations, like the moon of Scipio, have built entire economies on banking and finance, holding immense power despite their relatively small population. Others, such as the Mon Calamari, have thrived through shipbuilding, constructing fleets that would one day serve both the Republic and the Rebellion. War has reshaped civilizations throughout history, whether through conquest or defense. The proud Echani warriors have trained for generations in the art of unarmed combat, believing that battle is the truest form of communication. The Chiss ascendancy, isolated in the unknown regions, has long operated with a sense of calculated precision, engaging only when necessary, but striking with ruthless efficiency. Meanwhile, the Mandalorians have seen their society shift from conquerors to exiles, their once mighty people fragmented by internal conflict and the interference of outside forces. Beyond military and economic power, belief systems and philosophies have played an essential role in shaping civilizations. While the Jedi Order represents one of the most well-known Force traditions, it is far from the only one. The Nightsisters of Dathomir wield dark magics rooted in ancient rituals, separate from the Sith, yet feared across the galaxy. The Lasat, nearly wiped out by the Empire, hold on to their spiritual connection to the Ashla, a belief in balance and destiny that echoes the Jedi's understanding of the Force. Even non-Force sensitive civilizations such as the Bothans have built their societies on intricate codes of honor, secrecy, and political maneuvering. The civilizations of the galaxy are as varied as the stars themselves, each leaving its mark in ways both great and small. Some will be remembered for their empires, others for their philosophies, and many will fade into history, their stories forgotten by all but the most dedicated scholars. But for those who seek to understand the true scope of the galaxy, these cultures are essential, shaping not just history, but the very nature of life among the stars. Deep beneath the tranquil waters of Naboo lies an advanced civilization unlike any other. The Gungans, often dismissed as primitive by outsiders, have mastered a form of organic technology that seamlessly integrates with their aquatic environment. Their cities, suspended in vast hydrostatic bubbles, showcase a level of engineering that many surface dwellers fail to appreciate. Unlike the rigid steel towers of Coruscant or the industrial sprawl of Fondor, Gungan architecture flows naturally, forming elegant domes that shimmer beneath the waves. Each structure is not constructed in the traditional sense, but grown, cultivated through an intricate understanding of their planet's biological processes. At the heart of Gungan technology is their unique approach to energy and material science. Instead of relying on durasteel or permacrete, they harness organic materials that can be manipulated and shaped over time. Their hydrostatic fields, which allow them to create air pockets underwater, operate on principles that remain poorly understood even by leading Republic scientists. These fields not only provide breathable space, but also serve as barriers against water pressure, allowing the Gungans to build sprawling metropolises hidden from the outside world. This same expertise extends to their weaponry. Gungan plasma-based weapons are an anomaly in galactic combat, operating differently from traditional blasters or slug throwers. The energy orbs they wield, often seen in the Battle of Naboo, contain highly concentrated plasma encased in an organic membrane. Upon impact, these orbs release a destabilizing energy surge, capable of disabling machinery and stunning living targets. Unlike the blunt force of projectile weapons or the lethal precision of a lightsaber, Gungan technology prioritizes disruption, making them particularly effective against droid armies. Combat strategy among the Gungans also differs from conventional warfare. Where many armies favor direct engagement and heavy firepower, the Gungans rely on mobility, deception, and terrain advantage. Their use of energy shields, capable of deflecting blaster fire, allows them to engage in prolonged battles against technologically superior foes. This was evident during their battle against the Trade Federation, where they held the front lines long enough for Queen Amidala to strike at the heart of the occupation. Though often underestimated, their tactics reflect an understanding of battlefield control that few armies possess. For most of their history, the Gungans remained separate from the human population of Naboo. Their isolationist policies were not born out of hostility, but rather a deep-rooted belief in self-preservation. The swamps and lakes of Naboo provided everything they needed, and interactions with surface dwellers were seen as unnecessary at best, dangerous at worst. However, this perspective shifted in response to the invasion of the Trade Federation. Faced with a common enemy, the Gungans forged an alliance with Queen Amidala, marking a turning point in their history. From that moment forward, they played an active role in the greater affairs of the galaxy, proving that their civilization was far more sophisticated than many had assumed. The Gungans stand as a testament to how civilizations can thrive outside the industrial and technological norms of the Republic. Their ability to shape their environment, harness organic technology, and develop unique combat strategies highlights a level of ingenuity that is often overlooked. While many focus on the power struggles of the core worlds, the Gungans quietly remind the galaxy that strength comes in many forms, even in the depths of Naboo's waters. Throughout galactic history, few cultures have maintained a legacy as formidable as the Mandalorians. They are more than warriors. They are a people bound by honor, conflict, and an unshakable code that transcends lineage. Unlike many civilizations, Mandalorians are not defined by species or ancestry, but by adherence to their way of life. To wear the armor is to embrace the creed, a philosophy that has carried them through centuries of war, transformation, and division. At the heart of Mandalorian culture lies the Rezol Nara, the 6 tenets that govern their existence: wearing armor, speaking their language, defending themselves and their clans, raising their children as Mandalorians, contributing to the welfare of their people, and answering the call of their leaders in times of war. These principles shape every aspect of their society, ensuring that tradition is upheld even as the galaxy changes around them. It is a way of life that values strength, loyalty, and resilience above all else, traits that have made Mandalorians both feared and respected. Despite this unity of belief, Mandalorian society has never been without internal conflict. Their history is marked by constant shifts between those who seek conquest and those who favor peace. The warrior clans, known for their mercenary lifestyle, stand in stark contrast to the new Mandalorians, a pacifist movement that once attempted to reform their war-driven past. This ideological divide nearly tore Mandalore apart, culminating in civil wars that left scars on their homeworld and fractured their people. Even after the fall of the pacifist government, these divisions persisted, shaping the many factions that would later rise. One of the defining elements of Mandalorian culture is Beskar, the legendary metal that forms their armor. Known for its near-impervious strength, Beskar is resistant to blaster fire, extreme temperatures, and even the deadly strike of a lightsaber. It is not simply armor, it is an inheritance, passed down through generations and reforged as needed. The significance of Beskar goes beyond its physical properties. It symbolizes the endurance of Mandalorian tradition, a material representation of their unbreakable spirit. To possess Beskar is to wield a piece of Mandalorian history, a responsibility that few take lightly. The Jedi-Mandalorian Wars remain one of the most defining conflicts in their history, shaping their tactics, weapons, and view of the Force. Long before the rise of the Republic, Mandalorian crusaders sought to challenge the Jedi, testing their strength against warriors who wielded power beyond comprehension. This war forced the Mandalorians to adapt, developing technology and combat techniques specifically designed to counter Jedi abilities. Jetpacks, wrist-mounted weaponry, and Beskar-forged weaponry became essential tools, allowing them to stand against Force-Wielders in battle. Though the Jedi ultimately prevailed, the conflict cemented the Mandalorian reputation as one of the greatest warrior societies the galaxy had ever seen. Mandalorians have never been an empire in the traditional sense. Their influence does not come from governing vast territories, but from the legends they leave behind. Whether as conquerors, bounty hunters, or rebels, they have remained a force that refuses to be erased. Even in times of decline, the creed survives. It is not bound by a single ruler or a single world. It endures in those who live by it, wherever they may be in the galaxy. Deep within the mid-rim, the planet Kashyyyk rises from the mist like a living fortress. Towering Rosha trees stretch into the sky, forming a natural metropolis where entire cities are woven into their vast canopies. This is the home of the Wookiees, a species whose strength is matched only by their loyalty. Far from being primitive, Wookiee civilization is a fusion of tradition and innovation, where craftsmanship and technology exist in harmony with nature. Wookiee cities are built vertically, with the most sacred and prestigious spaces located high in the treetops. Each layer of Kashyyyk's massive forests serves a purpose, from the sunlit heights where elders and warriors dwell to the shadowed lower levels, teeming with dangerous creatures. Travel between these elevated settlements requires rope bridges, wooden lifts, and expert climbing skills, making Wookiee warriors as agile as they are powerful. Their connection to the land is deep, and the structures they build are not imposed upon the environment, but seamlessly integrated into it. Though known for their raw physical might, Wookiees are also master craftsmen. Their weapons, such as the bowcaster, are symbols of their ingenuity, blending mechanical precision with natural elements. Bowcasters fire energy-infused quarrels that strike with the force of a blaster, but carry the weight of tradition. Their blades, armor, and tools reflect a culture that values resilience, artistry, and function in equal measure. Despite their technological advancements, Wookiees do not mass-produce weapons or sell them to outsiders, as each piece is created with care and intended for those deemed worthy. Central to Wookiee culture is the concept of the life debt, a vow of eternal loyalty sworn to those who save their lives. This is not given lightly, nor is it mere gratitude. It is an unbreakable bond that compels a Wookiee to serve and protect their savior as if they were kin. This oath is seen as sacred, surpassing personal desires or ambitions. It is through this tradition that legends like Chewbacca found themselves bound to individuals who would change the course of history. For the Wookiees, honor is not measured in conquest, but in unwavering dedication to those they trust. Despite their strength and resilience, the Wookiees suffered greatly under the rule of the Galactic Empire. With their immense size and endurance, they were targeted as ideal slave labor, forced to work in brutal conditions on distant worlds and in the construction of imperial war machines. Kashyyyk itself became a prison, with the Empire stripping its resources and oppressing its people. Those who resisted faced brutal retribution, yet the Wookiees refused to break. From underground resistance networks to open defiance, they fought relentlessly to reclaim their freedom. Even in the face of enslavement, Wookiee culture endured. Their alliances with the Republic, the Rebellion, and later the Resistance were not formed out of desperation, but from a shared commitment to justice. They were never conquerors, nor did they seek power beyond their homeworld, yet their presence in galactic history is undeniable. The strength of the Wookiees is not just in their ability to crush enemies, but in their refusal to surrender, no matter how overwhelming the odds. Kashyyyk stands, and so do they. Across the outer rim, the planet Ryloth stands as both a symbol of hardship and resilience. Its surface is unforgiving, a world of brutal deserts and towering mountain ranges, where the sun's relentless heat forces its people to carve their homes into the rock itself. The Twi'leks, with their distinctive headtails known as Leku, have long adapted to these challenges, creating a civilization that thrives beneath the surface. The cities of Ryloth are a marvel of underground engineering, their tunnels extending deep into the planet, providing shelter and security in an environment that offers little mercy. Twi'lek society is built on contrasts. At the highest levels, noble houses rule over their people, often engaging in political maneuvering that extends far beyond Ryloth itself. These leaders wield influence across the galaxy, forging alliances and making difficult compromises to protect their home. Beneath them are the warriors, a proud and fierce caste that has fought off countless threats over generations. However, for many Twi'leks, life is marked by hardship. Slavery has been a grim reality for their species for centuries, with Twi'lek captives sold across the galaxy to those who see their beauty as a commodity rather than a mark of cultural identity. This division has shaped the fate of Ryloth time and time again. Some nobles have used their status to shield their people, while others have betrayed them for personal gain. Throughout history, Twi'lek leaders have been forced to navigate the fine line between survival and submission, knowing that one wrong step could mean devastation for their world. The constant threat of outside interference, from the Hutts, the Separatists, and later the Empire, has left Ryloth in a state of near-perpetual struggle. Despite this, the Twi'leks have never remained passive. Their resistance movements have become legendary, with warriors rising to fight against oppression at every turn. Cham Syndulla, one of the most influential figures in Twi'lek history, understood the cost of war better than most. He led the Free Ryloth movement against both the Separatists and later the Galactic Empire, refusing to let his people be used as pawns in someone else's game. Unlike many Twi'lek politicians who sought to negotiate with their oppressors, Cham believed in action, striking at Imperial forces with relentless precision. The struggle for Ryloth was not merely one of military force, but also of political survival. Twi'lek leaders who sought to protect their world had to play the long game, balancing diplomacy with resistance, knowing that open defiance often led to brutal consequences. Some turned to subterfuge, using their charm and intelligence to manipulate those who sought to control them. Others, like Cham, chose outright rebellion, knowing that freedom would never be given. It had to be taken. Even after the fall of the Empire, Ryloth's fight was far from over. The scars of war, the divisions within Twi'lek society, and the lingering presence of crime syndicates ensured that their struggle continued. Yet through it all, Twi'leks have endured. Their beauty, often seen as a weakness by outsiders, has been matched by their strength. No matter how many times their world has been threatened, the people of Ryloth have refused to be broken. Dathomir is a world of blood-red skies and twisted shadows, where the very land itself seems to whisper secrets to those who walk its surface. Its jagged mountains and tangled forests hide dangers that would terrify even the bravest travelers. This is the domain of the Nightsisters, a coven of force-sensitive witches who have mastered a form of power unlike anything found in the Jedi or Sith traditions. Their magic, drawn from the dark side, does not rely on lightsabers or ancient Sith texts, but on ritual, alchemy, and raw willpower. The Nightsisters have long remained outsiders in the galaxy, their ways feared even by the Sith. Unlike Sith Lords, who seek power through domination and betrayal, the Nightsisters practice a more communal form of dark sorcery, binding themselves to ancient traditions passed down through generations. Their abilities stretch beyond simple force manipulation, reanimation of the dead, shrouds of invisibility, and rituals that twist reality itself. Those who encounter their magic quickly learn that they are not dealing with mere force users, but something far older, something primal. Their leader, Mother Talzin, understood the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. She guided her people with a ruthless intelligence, forging uneasy alliances when necessary, but never allowing her coven to be controlled. She saw the Sith for what they were, deceivers who sought to use others for their own ends. When Count Dooku, under Darth Sidious' orders, betrayed the Nightsisters and slaughtered them with separatist droids, Talzin retaliated with magic so powerful that it nearly reshaped the fate of the Clone Wars. The destruction of the Nightsisters did not mean the end of their power. Survivors scattered across the galaxy, carrying fragments of their dark arts with them. The last remnants of their magic endured in individuals like Asajj Ventress, a former Nightsister who became a deadly assassin before forging her own path. Even the Sith, despite their belief in ultimate control, could never fully erase the influence of Dathomir's witches. Their rivalry with the Sith was inevitable. The Sith sought total dominance over the dark side, while the Nightsisters wielded a power they did not fully understand. This made them both a threat and a curiosity. Darth Sidious, ever fearful of any challenge to his supremacy, ensured that the Coven was wiped out before they could become more than a nuisance. Yet even in death, their legacy remained. Sith alchemy borrowed elements from Nightsister sorcery, and those who studied the darker aspects of the Force often found themselves drawn to Dathomir's ruins, seeking whatever forgotten knowledge might still linger. Even after the fall of the Empire, whispers of the Nightsisters persisted. Artifacts infused with their magic, found their way into the hands of collectors and warlords. Their rituals, once performed in the depths of Dathomir's forests, were remembered by those who had seen their power firsthand. Though their numbers were few, the Nightsisters were never truly gone. Their magic, ancient and unrelenting, refused to fade. The Geonosians were a species defined by precision, structure, and an unshakable hierarchy. Their vast underground hives stretched beneath the barren surface of Geonosis, forming a world of tunnels, spires, and intricate machinery. This insectoid civilization operated as a rigid caste system where drones, warriors, and aristocrats all served the will of the queen. Geonosian society was built on obedience, and nowhere was that more evident than in their engineering. Their factories churned out droids by the millions, their workers assembling deadly machines with a cold efficiency that made them invaluable to the separatist cause. While Geonosians had been building weapons for centuries, their most infamous contribution to galactic history was the creation of the Death Star. The initial designs, forged in secret at the height of the Clone Wars, were entrusted to Poggle the Lesser, the Archduke of Geonosis. Under his rule, the Geonosians played a key role in laying the groundwork for what would become the ultimate symbol of imperial power. However, this alliance with the Sith would prove to be their downfall. Once the Empire was firmly in control, the Geonosians became loose ends, ones that Palpatine had no intention of leaving untied. The genocide of Geonosis was not quick, nor was it widely known. The Empire could not afford to let the builders of the Death Star remain, lest they spread its secrets. To ensure complete silence, the population was systematically exterminated. Chemicals were deployed, rendering the entire species nearly extinct. The vast hive structures that once echoed with the sounds of industry became tombs, their corridors filled with the remains of those who had unknowingly signed their own death warrant by working for the Sith. Yet even before Imperial betrayal sealed their fate, Geonosis had seen its share of horrors. Deep within the hives, a different kind of nightmare festered, one born not of politics, but of biology. Queen Karina the Great was unlike other Geonosian rulers. She did not simply command, she controlled. Her experiments in mind control were grotesque, transforming unwilling subjects into obedient husks, stripped of free will. She laced their bodies with parasitic worms, bending them to her will through a biological horror that defied natural law. Even members of her own species were not safe. Her reign was brief, and her creations, mindless thralls with no will of their own, were ultimately destroyed. But the existence of such experiments painted a grim picture of what Geonosian rule could become if left unchecked. It was not enough for them to build war machines. In the hands of a ruler like Karina, they sought to control minds as well. By the time of the rebellion, Geonosis was a barren wasteland, its people reduced to scattered remnants. The few survivors, like the drone Click-Clack, served as reminders of a civilization that had been erased not by war, but by the very empire they helped to build. Their expertise had shaped one of the deadliest weapons in history, yet in the end, they were deemed unworthy of survival. The architects of destruction had become victims of it. The surface of Kamino is a restless expanse of endless ocean, its waters stretching far beyond the horizon, broken only by towering structures that seem almost unnatural against the stormy sky. There is no land here, no forests or mountains, only the rhythmic churn of waves and the gleaming white domes of cloning facilities that rise from the depths. Within these sterile halls, life is manufactured with calculated precision, engineered to fulfill a purpose rather than to experience existence on its own terms. Kaminoans are known for their mastery of genetics. a species defined not by emotion or ideology, but by efficiency. Their elongated forms and emotionless expressions reflect a people who have long since removed personal attachment from the equation of life. They do not create out of curiosity or compassion. They manufacture out of necessity and profit. Their cloning expertise made them indispensable to the galaxy's most powerful factions, yet their loyalty was never to any cause, only to their craft. The Grand Army of the Republic was their greatest achievement, a military force created in secret, cultivated over years in pristine incubation chambers. Each soldier was an identical reflection of the original template, Jango Fett, yet none were truly identical in spirit. The Kaminoans believed in control, in the careful manipulation of genes to weed out disobedience and enhance battlefield efficiency. Some clones were designed to lead, others to follow without question. Even free will could be fine-tuned, shaped by subtle genetic alterations and rigorous training regimens. Yet beneath the Republic's banners, an ethical dilemma festered, one that neither the Kaminoans nor their clients acknowledged. These soldiers were living beings, yet they were treated as products, engineered with built-in obsolescence. Their accelerated aging ensured they would never see old age, their very existence a temporary measure for a war that they had no choice in fighting. For the Kaminoans, there was no tragedy in this, only the success of a carefully executed contract. But the war ended, and with it, so did Kamino's usefulness. The Empire, built on the bones of the Republic, no longer needed an army that questioned orders or remembered a time before imperial rule. The clones, despite their unwavering service, were gradually replaced with conscripts, soldiers who could be indoctrinated, who would not carry the ghost of a republic that Palpatine had worked so hard to erase. And so the Kaminoans were discarded just as coldly as they had created their armies. In one final act of control, the Empire ensured that Kamino itself would vanish. The cloning facilities, once a marvel of technological ingenuity, were bombarded and reduced to ruins. The waters that had concealed their secrets for so long swallowed them once more, leaving behind nothing but wreckage. Official records erased their name, their work reduced to classified files buried beneath layers of imperial secrecy. Few traces of the Kaminoans remained, and fewer still survived the Empire's purge. Their knowledge, once sought after by the most powerful figures in the galaxy, became a forgotten footnote. In their pursuit of genetic perfection, they had overlooked the one truth that civilizations often learn too late. Usefulness is not the same as security. When the war ended, so did the need for Kamino, and so did Kamino itself. Across the Outer Rim, few names carried more weight than the Hutts. They did not command fleets, nor did they wield the Force, yet their power was undeniable. Entire sectors bent to their will, not through conquest but through control, of trade, of crime, of entire planetary economies. The Hutt cartel ruled the Underworld, and where the Republic or the Empire wielded brute force, the Hutts thrived in the shadows, turning corruption into an empire of its own. At the heart of their dominion lay Nal Hutta, a world of thick, humid swamps and smog-choked skies. Its surface was a reflection of its rulers, opulent yet decayed, grand but steeped in excess. The great palaces of the Hutts loomed above the filth, vast fortresses where deals were struck, betrayals unfolded, and debts, monetary or otherwise, were paid in full. These palaces were not merely homes but symbols of dominance, where power was measured not by political ideology or military might, but by credits, slaves, and influence. Unlike traditional ruling classes, the Hutts had no standing armies. They had no need for them. Control was maintained through a web of enforcers, bounty hunters and smugglers, each bound by loyalty, greed, or fear. The cartel thrived on vice, spice, gambling, weapons, and slaves, ensuring that dependency, not loyalty, kept the credits flowing. Planets fell into their grasp without a single shot fired. Governments indebted themselves to the Hutts, criminals sought their favor, and even the most powerful warlords understood that true victory was not in winning battles, but in owning the battlefield itself. Jabba the Hutt embodied this philosophy to perfection. His rule was not marked by conquest, but by the slow, inevitable strangulation of those who opposed him. From his throne on Tatooine, he controlled entire hyperspace routes, dictated the flow of spice, and commanded the most feared mercenaries in the galaxy. There was no war he needed to fight, because he had already won before anyone else had played their first move. Yet power built on excess is never eternal. Jabba's death at the hands of Princess Leia created a vacuum that could not be easily filled. Without his iron grip, the underworld fractured. Criminal syndicates that had once operated under his influence now saw opportunity in chaos. The Pike Syndicate, Crimson Dawn, and Black Sun fought for dominance, while the remnants of Jabba's empire crumbled under its own weight. The fall of Jabba was more than the death of a single crime lord. It was a shift in the underworld's balance. The Hutt cartel, once untouchable, found itself vulnerable. The Empire had tolerated them as necessary evils, but in the age of the New Republic, they were no longer indispensable. Planets that had once lived under their shadow now saw a chance for independence. The name of the Hutts, once enough to inspire both fear and obedience, no longer carried the weight it once had. Even so, the Hutts did not vanish. Power can fade, but it does not disappear overnight. The cartel adapted, shifting its focus, rebuilding in secret. Where brute force failed, corruption endured. The Hutts understood what many warlords and emperors never did. Rule is not about strength alone. It is about control, and as long as credits continued to flow, the underworld would always have a place for them. Across the burning dunes of Tatooine, where survival depends on adaptation, few beings have mastered resilience like the Jawas. Small, hooded figures wrapped in coarse brown robes, they scurry across the sands in towering sand crawlers, their glowing eyes peering from the darkness of their hoods. Dismissed as mere scavengers by outsiders, Jawas are far more than simple desert dwellers. They are the unseen hands keeping technology alive in one of the galaxy's harshest environments. A Jawa's life revolves around salvage. Their massive sand crawlers, once used by off-world miners, now serve as mobile workshops and homes, packed floor to ceiling with droids, starship components, and whatever discarded machinery they can strip, repair, or repurpose. To Jawas, nothing is truly broken, only waiting to be fixed, resold, or traded at the right price. They have an uncanny ability to locate lost or abandoned technology, often appearing as if out of nowhere to strip wreckage before anyone else can. For many, their first, and often frustrating encounter with Jawas comes during a trade. Jawas operate by their own rules, and their bargaining tactics are as much a part of their culture as their scavenging. Their language, a rapid-fire series of squeaks and chatter called Jawais, is almost always spoken at high speed, deliberately keeping outsiders off balance. They rarely give a direct answer, instead responding with ambiguous gestures, shouts, or bursts of laughter, turning every negotiation into an exhausting battle of patience. To them, the art of the deal is more than just economics. It's survival. Yet beneath their reputation as opportunistic traders, there is an intelligence few acknowledge. Jawas do not merely find technology. They understand it. They repair droids, restore vehicles, and even repurpose Imperial and Republic machinery, often with minimal resources. While others see them as untrustworthy, Jawas see themselves as essential to the galactic ecosystem, taking what is discarded and giving it new purpose. Without them, many frontier worlds would struggle to maintain even basic infrastructure. Their appearance remains one of the great mysteries of the Outer Rim. No one has ever seen a Jawa without its robes. Theories abound. Some claim they are rodent-like creatures. Others insist they are devolved remnants of an ancient species. The truth remains a closely guarded secret, shared only among their own kind. Even their glowing yellow eyes, unsettling to many, remain unexplained. Some believe they are natural bioluminescence, while others suggest their hoods contain special visors to help them see in the dark. Despite their small stature, Jawas have endured where others have failed. They have outlasted Hutts, warlords, and changing governments, continuing their work undisturbed. Whether selling faulty droids to moisture farmers or stripping the remains of a crashed starfighter, they remain a permanent fixture of desert life, their sand crawlers rolling endlessly across the wasteland, carrying the lifeblood of scavenged technology from one deal to the next. Across the endless dunes of Tatooine, where survival is dictated by the brutality of the twin suns, the Tusken Raiders carve out an existence in the most unforgiving of environments. Wrapped in tattered robes and breathing through filtered masks, they remain an enigma to most outsiders, seen only as savage raiders who attack without warning, leaving no survivors. But to the Tuskens, the desert is more than just a home. It is sacred, and to exist within it, one must respect its laws. Unlike the scattered settlements of moisture farmers or the commercial hubs controlled by the Hutts, Tusken society is built around strict traditions and an unshakable connection to the land. They move in tightly knit clans, their entire way of life revolving around survival. The desert offers no kindness, and neither do the Tuskens. Every hunt, every skirmish, every ritual is designed to reinforce the idea that only the strong endure. Those who cannot keep pace are left behind, and outsiders who trespass are rarely given a chance to leave. To the settlers of Tatooine, the Tuskens are raiders, bands of marauders who attack homesteads, kill travelers, and steal supplies without cause. But from the Tuskens' perspective, it is the settlers who are the invaders. They see moisture farming as an unnatural theft of the desert's essence, and they remember a time when the land belonged solely to them. To strike against those who disrupt the balance of the sands is not an act of mindless aggression. It is a necessary defense against those who refuse to understand the land's will. Much of their hostility stems from generations of conflict with outsiders who encroach upon their territory. Yet there is more to them than violence. Rituals dictate every aspect of Tusken life, from the coming-of-age trials that determine a warrior's place in the tribe, to the ceremonies surrounding the domestication of banthas, the loyal beasts that carry them across the desert. These creatures are more than just mounts. They are bonded companions, tied to their riders through a connection as sacred as blood. When a Tusken's bantha dies, the warrior is expected to wander the desert alone, seeking either death or redemption through a new bond. Despite their resilience, the Tuskens have suffered losses that reshaped their existence. One of the most infamous came at the hands of Anakin Skywalker. After the kidnapping of his mother, Shmi, by a Tusken clan, Skywalker tracked them to their camp and, in a blind fury, wiped out every man, woman, and child. It was an act of pure vengeance, one that forever altered his path to the dark side. To the Tuskens, it was another massacre in a history filled with bloodshed, reinforcing their belief that outsiders could never be trusted. Even as Tatooine changes, as governments rise and fall, the Tuskens remain, moving through the sands as they always have, bound to traditions older than the cities that call them monsters. They do not seek peace, nor do they seek war. They seek only to survive, as they always have. Deep within the towering forests of Endor, a civilization thrived high above the ground, concealed among the thick canopies. To those unfamiliar with their ways, the Ewoks appeared as little more than primitive tribal creatures, curious furry beings wielding crude spears and speaking in chattering, rhythmic tones. But beneath their seemingly harmless exterior lay a society that had mastered survival in one of the galaxy's most dangerous ecosystems, adapting to their environment with unparalleled efficiency. The Ewoks built their villages in the branches of Endor's massive trees, constructing intricate networks of rope bridges, wooden platforms, and woven dwellings. Every structure blended seamlessly into the dense foliage, shielding them from predators and intruders alike. This elevated lifestyle was not a matter of preference, but necessity. The forests were home to creatures far larger and deadlier than the Ewoks themselves, and their only defense was intelligence, cooperation, and a deep understanding of their terrain. While outsiders often dismissed them as primitive, the Ewoks were tactical in ways that far surpassed expectations. Their ambush tactics, trap-laying strategies, and knowledge of terrain gave them an advantage against enemies that underestimated them. Nowhere was this more evident than in their battle against the Empire. When Imperial forces established a shield generator outpost on Endor, the Ewoks initially observed them from a distance, avoiding confrontation. But when the rebels arrived, something changed. The Ewoks were not naive. They had no particular allegiance to the rebel alliance, nor did they harbor deep-rooted ideological hatred for the Empire. Their motivations were far more straightforward: survival. The Empire's growing presence in their forests posed a threat to their way of life, and the towering war machines the Imperials deployed made it clear that resistance would eventually become necessary. The rebels, unlike the stormtroopers, treated them with respect, and that was enough. The alliance was not born out of friendship, but mutual benefit. The Battle of Endor proved that underestimating the Ewoks was a grave mistake. Their knowledge of terrain allowed them to set traps that turned the tide of battle. Log-based battering rams crushed walkers, hidden pits swallowed Imperial speeder bikes whole, and swarming ambush tactics overwhelmed stormtroopers who were unprepared for such unorthodox warfare. What the Ewoks lacked in technology, they made up for with sheer ingenuity, turning the forest itself into a weapon. Beyond their combat prowess, the Ewoks had deep-rooted spiritual traditions. They believed in the power of the natural world and revered certain individuals as beings of great mystical significance. The arrival of C-3PO, mistaken for a deity, was not an isolated instance of superstition. It was a reflection of how they perceived the forces shaping their lives. This reverence extended to Jedi, whom they associated with cosmic balance and unseen powers. Though history often frames them as an unlikely ally in the war against the Empire, the Ewoks were never as simple as they appeared. They were survivors, warriors, and caretakers of the land they called home. Their victory over the Empire was not luck. It was a testament to the fact that strength is not always measured in numbers or technology, but in the will to protect one's way of life at all costs. Beneath the endless ocean waves of Mon Cala, towering spires and domed cities stood as a testament to one of the most technologically advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The Mon Calamari were a species of visionaries, shipbuilders and warriors, bound by a deep connection to their aquatic homeworld. Their cities, illuminated by bioluminescent organisms and advanced hydrotech, seamlessly integrated with the oceanic environment, showcasing their mastery of both engineering and marine adaptation. For centuries, the Mon Calamari were content to remain isolated, focused on innovation and the delicate balance of their world. However, the rise of the Galactic Empire shattered that peace. The Empire viewed Mon Cala not only as a strategic location, but as a source of invaluable shipbuilding expertise. When resistance broke out against Imperial occupation, the retaliation was swift and brutal. Cities were bombarded, waters poisoned, and leaders executed. The Mon Calamari, known for their diplomacy, had no choice but to become warriors. Central to their defiance was Admiral Akbar, a tactical genius who emerged as one of the most influential figures in the Rebel Alliance. His leadership transformed Mon Cala's shipyards into the backbone of the rebellion's fleet. Unlike the angular, oppressive designs of Imperial Star Destroyers, Mon Calamari ships were graceful yet resilient, built with reinforced hulls and organic curves. These vessels, designed initially for peaceful exploration, were rapidly converted into capital ships capable of standing against the Empire's war machine. Their defiance came at a cost. The Empire sought to break Mon Cala by exploiting the deep-seated tensions between the Mon Calamari and their neighboring species, the Quarren. While both races shared their world, their ideologies often clashed. The Mon Calamari leaned toward diplomacy and technological progress, while the Quarren, more isolationist, distrusted external influence. The Empire manipulated this divide, using the Quarren to enforce control, creating a civil war that weakened Mon Cala from within. Despite these efforts, unity prevailed. Many Quarren came to see the Empire's rule for what it was: enslavement, not governance. As their world crumbled under Imperial assault, the two species found common ground in resistance. The Mon Calamari fleet, once bound to the ocean floor, rose into the stars, carrying the spirit of their people with them. These vessels, including the famous MC-80 cruisers, became the primary warships of the rebellion, playing a crucial role in battles such as Endor, where Akbar's leadership helped turn the tide of war. Mon Cala's legacy is one of resilience. They were not warriors by nature, nor did they seek war, yet when their survival demanded it, they adapted. Their ships, once symbols of exploration, became weapons of freedom. Their society, once divided, found unity against oppression. In many ways, the Mon Calamari were not just architects of starships, but architects of hope, proving that even the most peaceful civilizations could rise against tyranny and shape the fate of the galaxy. Beyond the outermost borders of the known galaxy, concealed within the vast and treacherous unknown regions, lies the Chiss ascendancy. Unlike the Republic or the Empire, this civilization operates in near-total secrecy, governing an empire that remains untouched by the wars and conflicts that consume the rest of the galaxy. Few outsiders have ever encountered the Chiss, and even fewer understand the intricacies of their cold, calculated society. To the rest of the galaxy, they are a mystery, strategists whose movements are impossible to predict and whose allegiance remains uncertain. Unlike the chaotic power struggles of the core worlds, the Chiss operate under a strict meritocracy. Power is not inherited, but earned. Their ruling families, known as the 9 ruling houses, oversee every aspect of their civilization, with leadership determined not by birthright, but by intelligence, tactical brilliance, and proven ability. Among their greatest strengths is their military efficiency. Every engagement is carefully planned, every battle measured in probabilities, and every enemy analyzed with chilling precision. This is why a single Chiss admiral, Mithral Nuruodo, better known as Grand Admiral Thrawn, was able to rise through the ranks of the Empire and outmaneuver nearly every opponent he faced. Unlike most species that rely on hyperlane routes for navigation, the Chiss possess a rare advantage: Force-sensitive navigators known as Skywalkers. These young Chiss, primarily female, experience brief but powerful Force sensitivity during childhood, allowing them to perceive safe paths through the unpredictable dangers of the unknown regions. Without them, Chiss ships would be unable to traverse the volatile and uncharted territories they call home. However, their Force abilities fade as they grow older, a phenomenon that remains unexplained even to the Chiss themselves. Despite their military expertise and vast power, the Chiss remain detached from galactic conflicts. They do not seek expansion beyond their domain, nor do they offer alliances lightly. To outsiders, this neutrality may seem like inaction, but in truth, it is a carefully calculated decision. The Ascendancy thrives by maintaining its secrecy, avoiding entanglements with unstable galactic factions, and ensuring that no one fully understands the extent of their capabilities. Even the Empire, which briefly counted Thrawn among its highest-ranking officers, never truly grasped the full strength of the Chiss. This policy of isolationism is not without its critics, particularly among those who recognize the growing threats beyond the known galaxy. The Chiss are aware of dangers the Republic and Empire have never encountered, forces lurking in the deep reaches of space, far more terrifying than any Sith or Jedi war. Their secrecy is not just a preference but a necessity. As long as the Ascendancy remains hidden, they can prepare for battles the rest of the galaxy does not yet see coming. The Chiss do not engage in wars for conquest, nor do they seek dominance. Instead, they are patient, waiting for the moment when their intervention might be the only thing standing between civilization and annihilation. Throughout the history of the galaxy, few civilizations have burned as brightly or collapsed as violently as the Sith empires. While many associate the Sith with individuals like Darth Vader or Darth Sidious, these were merely the remnants of something far older, a lineage of dark power that once ruled vast territories. The Sith did not always operate in secret. There was a time when their banners stretched across entire star systems, their war fleets rivaled those of the Republic, and their temples stood as monuments to an ideology built on strength, ambition, and domination. The earliest Sith civilizations originated on Korriban, a desolate world where the ancient Sith species first harnessed the dark side. Over centuries, exiled Jedi who had fallen to darkness arrived on Korriban, intermingling with the native Sith and creating a new order of Force-Wielders who rejected the constraints of their former masters. They built tombs and temples, each structure a statement of power and legacy, and ruled through a strict hierarchy where only the strongest survived. These early Sith lords believed in a system where ambition was the key to advancement, a philosophy that would become both their greatest strength and their inevitable downfall. Many Sith empires rose and fell in cycles of power and destruction. The Sith expanded their influence, waging war against the Republic and the Jedi, often bringing entire worlds under their rule. Their military might was undeniable, but their own nature worked against them. Unlike the Jedi, who sought unity through discipline, the Sith valued personal power above all else. Betrayal was expected, and leaders were constantly challenged by ambitious apprentices. Rulers rarely died peacefully. Instead, they were either overthrown or slain by those closest to them, ensuring that Sith civilizations never remained stable for long. Despite their violent tendencies, Sith societies were not mindless cults of destruction. Their empires had structure, governments, laws, and even thriving economies built on conquest and trade. Planets under Sith rule often saw technological advancements, architectural marvels, and institutions dedicated to Sith philosophy and warfare. Their capital cities like Zeost and Dromund Kaas stood as testaments to their dominance, filled with towering spires, grand citadels, and arcane laboratories where Sith alchemists twisted the Force to their will. However, the ambition that drove them to greatness also ensured that no empire lasted indefinitely. The more powerful a Sith civilization became, the more likely it was to crumble under the weight of internal strife. In the end, the Sith empires collapsed not because of superior enemies, but because of their own unrelenting hunger for power. The Jedi fought them, the Republic resisted them, but it was the Sith themselves who ensured their civilizations could never endure. Each new Sith Lord sought to reshape the Order in their own image. Each warlord sought to claim absolute dominion, and in the chaos that followed, their enemies only had to wait for them to destroy one another. Even as the Sith faded into legend, their legacy remained, whispers of their teachings, artifacts hidden in forgotten tombs, and the inevitable rise of those who would seek to rebuild what had been lost, only to repeat the same cycle once more. Rodia is a world where survival is earned through strength, cunning, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to stay on top. From the moment they are born, Rodians are raised in a culture that glorifies combat, hunting, and competition. The dense, jungle-covered planet they call home is unforgiving, filled with vicious predators and rival clans constantly vying for dominance. This harsh environment shaped them into some of the galaxy's most feared bounty hunters, mercenaries, and assassins, their skills honed through generations of survival and bloodshed. Rodians see the hunt as more than just a way of life. It is the ultimate measure of honor. Victory in combat is celebrated, while failure brings shame upon one's clan. Their society revolves around a strict hierarchy, where warriors hold the highest status, and those who prove themselves in battle are given wealth, power, and influence. Even their entertainment reflects this obsession with combat. Rodian gladiatorial matches, where warriors fight to the death before massive crowds, are not just popular but considered sacred events that determine social standing. With a civilization built around battle, it is no surprise that many Rodians find themselves drawn to bounty hunting. The galaxy's criminal underworld provides them with endless opportunities to hone their skills, and their reputation for efficiency makes them highly sought-after enforcers. Unlike some species that turn to bounty hunting out of necessity, Rodians see it as a noble profession, a way to prove their worth beyond their homeworld. Contracts are accepted with pride, and many Rodians prefer to pursue targets personally rather than relying on advanced tracking technology, believing that a true hunter must master the art of pursuit. One of the most infamous Rodians in galactic history was Greedo, though his legacy is less than impressive. Born into a family of outcasts, he sought to make a name for himself in the criminal world, but lacked the instincts and experience of a true hunter. His fateful encounter with Han Solo cemented his place in history, but not in the way he had hoped. While Greedo's story ended in failure, other Rodians thrived in the dangerous world of bounty hunting. Many became enforcers for the Hutt cartel, serving crime lords who valued their loyalty and lethal efficiency. Others found work among the ranks of the Empire, hunting down fugitives and Jedi alike. Despite their presence across the galaxy, Rodia itself remained a world plagued by corruption. The ruling families, often crime lords themselves, maintained control through a mix of bribery, intimidation, and brute force. Internal conflicts between rival clans were constant, with power shifting hands frequently as leaders were overthrown or assassinated. The Republic had little interest in intervening, seeing Rodia as a lawless world beyond saving. Even after the rise of the Empire, the planet remained under the thumb of criminal syndicates, its people continuing the cycle of violence that had defined their history for centuries. For the Rodians, survival is the only law that matters. Whether serving as bounty hunters, mercenaries, or crime lords, they navigate the galaxy with the same ruthless instincts that shaped their world. To them, every hunt is a test, and only the strongest live long enough to claim victory. Togruta culture is built upon unity, survival, and the deep connection between individuals and their surroundings. Originating from the planet Shili, Togruta have long maintained a nomadic existence, traveling in large communal groups where cooperation is a necessity, not an option. Their homeworld's vast grasslands and dense forests are filled with formidable predators, forcing Togruta to rely on one another for protection and survival. This collective mindset influences every aspect of their society, from governance to combat philosophy. Unlike some civilizations that prioritize individual achievement, Togruta believe in the strength of the group. Their hunting strategies reflect this. Rather than relying on lone warriors, Togruta hunt in coordinated packs, overwhelming their prey with precision and teamwork. This instinct for cooperation makes them natural leaders and strategists, as they are accustomed to balancing personal skill with the needs of the whole. It also explains their reluctance to operate alone. Isolation is seen as unnatural, a sign of weakness rather than strength. Despite their deep-rooted traditions, Togruta are not isolationists. They have long been active participants in galactic affairs, with many leaving Shili to seek purpose elsewhere. The Jedi Order in particular has had a long history with Togruta, who are naturally attuned to the Force. The Order's ideals of selflessness and discipline align closely with their cultural values, making Togruta some of the most devoted Jedi in history. Their hunter pack mentality translates well into Jedi combat, allowing them to excel in lightsaber duels and battlefield strategy. One of the most famous Togruta in galactic history is Ahsoka Tano, a warrior who defied expectation and forged her own path. Initially trained as a Jedi under Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka embodied the discipline of her people while also challenging the rigid structure of the Order. When accused of a crime she didn't commit, she walked away rather than conform to an institution that had failed her. In doing so, she demonstrated the adaptability that defines her species, not just warriors, but individuals capable of great transformation when faced with adversity. Togruta architecture and technology also reflect their pragmatic nature. Their settlements blend seamlessly with their environment, using natural materials rather than imposing structures that disrupt the land. This harmony with nature extends beyond Shili, as Togruta communities across the galaxy often adapt to their surroundings rather than force their will upon them. This flexible mindset has allowed them to thrive on multiple worlds without losing their cultural identity. Still, despite their adaptability, Togruta have often found themselves at odds with the galaxy's more dominant civilizations. Their preference for collective leadership conflicts with more centralized forms of government, and their loyalty to their own kind has led to misunderstandings with outsiders. Some see them as too insular, unwilling to fully integrate into the broader galactic community. Others admire their discipline, recognizing that their way of life creates resilient, resourceful individuals who stand firm in their beliefs. In an ever-changing galaxy, the Togruta remain a people defined by balance between tradition and progress, individual and group, war and peace. Their story is one of endurance, shaped by a history of adaptation, loyalty, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing one never stands alone. The Falleen are a species known for their elegance, control, and a biological advantage that sets them apart from many others in the galaxy, an ability to manipulate emotions through pheromones. Hailing from the planet Falleen, their cold-blooded physiology and reptilian features make them physically distinct, but it is their presence that leaves the most lasting impression. Falleen are deliberate in everything they do, rarely displaying visible emotion, and yet they hold the power to bend the emotions of others to their will. Pheromonal influence among the Falleen is not just a passive trait, it is a weapon. With subtle biochemical signals, they can induce attraction, compliance, or even docility in other species. This ability has made them both feared and desired, as few can resist their presence once ensnared. It is no surprise that many Falleen rise to positions of influence, whether in politics, business, or crime. Those who encounter them often leave with a nagging sense that their decisions were not entirely their own. One of the most infamous Falleen in galactic history is Prince Xizor, leader of the Black Sun crime syndicate. Unlike the Hutts, who relied on brute force and financial manipulation, Xizor built his power on seduction, deception, and strategy. His syndicate thrived not just through coercion, but by making others want to serve his interests. Even within the highest circles of the Empire, Xizor commanded respect, operating within the shadows of Palpatine's rule as an untouchable force. His influence was so great that even Darth Vader considered him a rival, and their personal conflict shaped some of the darkest corners of the Underworld. The Falleen view power differently from other dominant species. Whereas the Hutts revel in excess and the Chiss wield intellect like a scalpel, the Falleen play a long game, preferring manipulation over direct confrontation. Their society mirrors this philosophy, ruled by noble houses that maintain an intricate web of alliances, betrayals, and unspoken agreements. Their aristocracy is deeply embedded in tradition, valuing patience and precision above all else. A Falleen ruler does not act out of impulse but waits for the exact moment where every move is in their favor. Despite their calculated nature, Falleen culture is not devoid of honor. They believe in discipline, refinement, and maintaining control over oneself. To lose composure is a disgrace, and emotional outbursts are seen as a sign of weakness. This extends to their dealings with outsiders, where they maintain a facade of calm, no matter the situation. Those who mistake this for passivity, however, often regret their miscalculation. Falleen do not forgive slights easily, and their retribution is always measured, precise, and devastating. While their numbers in galactic politics and criminal empires are few, their presence is always felt. Their reputation ensures that when a Falleen speaks, people listen. Whether in a Senate chamber, a corporate boardroom, or the halls of the Underworld, the influence of these cold-blooded strategists lingers long after their physical presence is gone. The Zabrak are a species defined by resilience, discipline, and an unshakable will. Known for their distinctive facial horns and intricate tattoo markings, they are natural-born warriors, raised in a culture that values endurance above all else. Their physical durability, combined with a near-impervious resistance to pain, makes them some of the fiercest combatants in the galaxy. Whether in the far reaches of the Outer Rim or on battlefields shaped by galactic conflict, a Zabrak rarely backs down from a challenge. Their homeworld, Iridonia, is a harsh and unforgiving planet that has shaped their people into survivors. The terrain is rugged, the weather is punishing, and the oceans are filled with predators that have tested the Zabrak for generations. To survive, they have relied on discipline and a deep sense of self-sufficiency. Iridonian Zabrak are known for their independence, forming tightly knit clans that operate with a warrior's code, respecting strength and loyalty above all else. However, not all Zabrak originate from Iridonia. A faction of their people exists on Dathomir, where they are known as the Night Brothers. Unlike their independent brethren, the Night Brothers live under the rule of the Nightsisters, a matriarchal society that wields dark magic and twisted force abilities. Raised as warriors and servants, the Night Brothers undergo brutal trials to prove their worth, often serving as enforcers and assassins for their masters. This distinction between Iridonian Zabrak and Night Brothers has created an ideological divide between those who value their own strength and those who have been molded by outside forces. One of the most infamous Zabrak in galactic history is Darth Maul. A product of the Nightsister matriarch, Mother Talzin, Maul was raised as a weapon of the Sith, trained from childhood to embrace pain and channel it into power. His agility, combat skill, and sheer determination made him one of the deadliest Sith warriors to ever exist. But his story also serves as a tragic reflection of what happens when a Zabrak's natural resilience is twisted into something unnatural. Beyond their warrior culture, Zabrak are not without philosophy. They believe in personal mastery, viewing life's struggles as necessary to achieving true strength. Their tattoos, which vary from clan to clan, are a representation of their journey, each mark signifying trials overcome and battles won. To a Zabrak, pain is not something to be avoided, but something to be understood, conquered, and used as a tool to forge an indomitable spirit. Despite their reputation as warriors, Zabrak are not inherently violent. They do not seek war for its own sake, but they will never flee from one. Even outside of combat, they exhibit discipline in all aspects of life, from engineering to philosophy. Many who leave their homeworld find themselves drawn to mercenary work, bounty hunting, or even the Jedi Order, where their natural tenacity makes them formidable peacekeepers. While the galaxy often remembers the Zabrak for figures like Darth Maul, their history extends far beyond individual warriors. They are a people shaped by hardship, defined by strength, and feared for their unwavering resolve. The Neimoidians were not warriors, yet they commanded an empire that shaped the course of galactic history. Their strength did not come from battlefields or armadas, but from something far more insidious: economic control. Through the Trade Federation, they established a financial empire that stretched across hyperspace lanes, dictating commerce, transportation, and taxation in ways that made them one of the most powerful factions in the Republic. Their influence was built on a foundation of wealth, manipulation, and calculated fear, turning corporate dominance into an art form. Originating from the humid, fog-covered world of Neimoidia, the Neimoidians were shaped by scarcity from birth. Their early years were marked by brutal competition, where only the most cunning and resourceful survived. This shaped their entire outlook, instilling in them an obsessive need for financial security and a willingness to betray allies to maintain their wealth. To them, prosperity was not a luxury. It was the only path to survival. At the height of their power, the Neimoidians controlled vast fleets of automated warships and battle droids. Unlike traditional military forces, theirs required no loyalty, no salaries, and no morale boosts. Every strategic decision was calculated for maximum profit, ensuring that Neimoidian rule was enforced without direct risk to their own kind. Their preference for remaining behind the scenes, using droids and hired enforcers, only reinforced their reputation as cowards in the eyes of the galaxy. But in reality, their methods were not built on fear of combat. They were the logical outcome of a society that saw risk as unnecessary when profit could do the fighting for them. Their downfall began with the blockade of Naboo. Seeking to pressure the Republic into submission over trade disputes, they underestimated both the resilience of the Naboo and the intervention of the Jedi. What should have been a swift economic victory turned into a humiliating defeat, exposing the weaknesses of their over-reliance on technology and bureaucratic cowardice. The invasion of Naboo failed, but the damage to their reputation was far greater. Despite this failure, the Neimoidians played an even greater role in the Clone Wars. Under the leadership of Newt Gunray and the shadowy influence of Darth Sidious, they became key financiers of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Their fleets supplied the Separatists with droid armies, their wealth fueled the war machine, and their strategic maneuvering prolonged the conflict for years. But once again, they were only ever pawns in a larger game. When the war ended and the Republic transformed into the Empire, the Neimoidians found themselves discarded. The Empire had no use for independent corporations that could challenge its economic grip, and one by one their leaders were eliminated. Their obsession with wealth, which had once made them untouchable, became their greatest weakness. Without political allies and military strength, their power collapsed under the weight of imperial authority. The Trade Federation was dismantled, their influence reduced to remnants of a past era. While some Neimoidians continued their financial dealings in secret, their golden age had ended. A civilization that had once controlled the Republic's trade now found itself scrambling for relevance, a reminder that economic power is only as strong as those who allow it to exist. The volcanic world of Sullust was as inhospitable as it was vital to the galactic economy. Beneath its toxic skies and endless fields of magma lay vast underground cities, home to the Sullustans, a species renowned for their piloting expertise, navigation skills, and industrial influence. Their contributions to both the corporate sector and the Rebel Alliance made them an essential force in the galaxy's shifting power struggles. Despite their relatively small population, Sullustans became some of the most sought-after navigators in the galaxy. Their unique ability to process vast amounts of data in real time made them invaluable as pilots and hyperspace scouts. This talent wasn't just a product of training, it was an evolutionary advantage. Generations of living in labyrinthine underground tunnels had sharpened their spatial awareness, allowing them to memorize complex routes and react instinctively to changing environments. For a Sullustan, piloting wasn't just about skill, it was second nature. This reputation led to their deep involvement in interstellar commerce. Soro Sub Corporation, the largest employer on Sullust, dominated the planet's economy and was one of the most influential megacorporations in the Republic. Soro Sub manufactured everything from starships to blasters, and its reach extended far beyond the outer rim. However, corporate power came with complications. When the Empire rose to dominance, Soro Sub aligned itself with imperial rule, forcing the Sullustan people into a difficult position: submit to imperial control or resist and risk economic collapse. Many Sullustans refused to accept imperial oppression, and their world became a breeding ground for rebellion. The most famous of these was Nien Nunb, a Sullustan pilot who would go on to play a crucial role in the rebellion's most decisive battles. Serving as Lando Calrissian's co-pilot aboard the Millennium Falcon during the Battle of Endor, Nunb helped destroy the second Death Star, cementing his place in history. His efforts, however, were just one example of the larger Sullustan resistance movement. As the rebellion gained traction, Sullust's industrial power became a crucial asset. The planet's underground facilities provided a safe haven for the rebel fleet, allowing them to mass-produce ships and weapons away from Imperial eyes. It wasn't just about strategy, it was survival. The rebellion needed allies with resources, and Sullustans had the means to supply them. The war forced Sorosub's leadership into a difficult decision. While the corporation had initially supported the Empire, growing unrest among its workers made continued cooperation dangerous. Facing the reality that Imperial rule would ultimately cost them control of their own planet, Sorosub defected to the rebellion. With this shift, Sullust became an officially recognized ally of the Rebel Alliance, providing ships, pilots, and a key staging ground for the final push against the Empire. After the fall of the Empire, Sullust's influence remained strong. The New Republic relied on the planet's shipyards to rebuild its fleet, and its pilots continued to serve as some of the best navigators in the galaxy. From a world carved out of volcanic rock, the Sullustans had shaped their own destiny, not just through combat, but through their unparalleled ability to guide others through the chaos of war. Secrecy, manipulation, and information control defined the Bothans, a species that built an entire civilization around espionage. Their homeworld, Botha-Wui, stood as a hub of intelligence operations, where power was dictated not by brute force or military strength, but by the ability to acquire and leverage secrets. Bothans thrived in a world of deception, where loyalty was conditional and survival depended on outmaneuvering both allies and enemies. Unlike species that sought conquest through war, the Bothans waged their battles in the shadows. They perfected the art of information warfare, maintaining an extensive spy network that infiltrated governments, corporations, and military organizations across the galaxy. It was said that nothing happened in the galaxy without a Bothan somewhere knowing about it. Their operatives specialized in hacking encrypted systems, bribing officials, and planting misinformation. Yet, for all their influence, Bothans rarely took center stage. Instead, they preferred to manipulate events from behind the scenes, ensuring that their role remained untraceable. This culture of espionage shaped Bothan society, where political power was a game of survival. Their clans, known as spy nets, operated like rival intelligence agencies, constantly vying for dominance. Betrayal wasn't just expected, it was an essential part of the system. Even within the same clan, assassinations and sabotage were common tools used to gain the upper hand. Despite the cutthroat nature of their internal politics, one thing unified the Bothans: their belief in the supremacy of knowledge. To a Bothan, information was the ultimate weapon, and whoever controlled it, controlled the future. Their greatest contribution to galactic history came at an unimaginable cost. During the height of the Galactic Civil War, the Bothan spy net intercepted transmissions regarding the construction of the second Death Star. Realizing the magnitude of their discovery, a team of Bothan operatives was assembled to steal the plans and uncover the station's weaknesses. The mission was a success, but the price was devastating. Imperial security forces tracked and eliminated most of the Bothans involved, ensuring that the retrieval of the Death Star plans became one of the most costly intelligence operations in history. This led to the now famous phrase spoken by Mon Mothma: "Many Bothans died to bring us this information." But this was just one example of their hidden influence. Bothans played key roles in shaping galactic events, often ensuring their interests remained protected, regardless of who ruled the stars. Even after the fall of the Empire, they continued their work, using their intelligence networks to steer the New Republic. However, their methods did not always make them allies. Many in the Republic viewed Bothans as opportunists, willing to shift alliances if it benefited their long-term goals. Despite their reputation, no one could deny their effectiveness. Whether undermining imperial regimes, gathering intelligence on criminal syndicates, or manipulating trade routes for profit, The Bothans ensured that no civilization could act without considering their watchful eyes. Their mastery of deception was not just a survival strategy, it was a way of life. Among the many civilizations of the galaxy, the Mirialans stood out not through conquest or technological dominance, but through their unwavering spiritual discipline. Their culture was deeply rooted in tradition, with faith guiding every aspect of their lives. Though not all Mirialans were Force-sensitive, they viewed the Force as an ever-present energy that shaped their destiny. This belief system emphasized balance, patience, and self-improvement, making them naturally inclined toward the Jedi Order. For those who did not follow the Jedi path, faith remained at the core of their personal journeys, expressed through rituals, meditation, and physical mastery. Mirialans saw life as a series of challenges meant to test one's resolve. These trials were not random hardships, but steps on a preordained journey, and each lesson learned was permanently recorded, both in memory and in ink. Their intricate tattoo system was one of the most defining aspects of their culture. Unlike markings used for decoration, Mirialan tattoos told a story. Each pattern represented a milestone, a test overcome, or a spiritual revelation. No two Mirialans shared the same markings, as each tattoo reflected individual growth. The placement, design, and complexity of these symbols carried deep meaning, and receiving new markings was an act of sacred importance. Their disciplined nature made Mirialans some of the most composed beings in the galaxy. Whether as warriors, diplomats, or scholars, they approached their duties with a quiet determination. Restraint and focus were valued above all else, which is why many found themselves drawn to the Jedi Order. Luminara Unduli, one of the most well-known Mirialan Jedi, embodied this philosophy. Her strict adherence to Jedi principles and emotional control set her apart even among her peers. She believed in duty above personal attachment, and her guidance extended beyond combat, as she sought to mold her Padawan, Barriss Offee, into a true disciple of Mirialan wisdom. However, discipline without balance could lead to rigidity, and Mirialan culture was not immune to internal conflict. Barriss Offee became a tragic example of what happened when faith was tested beyond its limits. Disillusioned with the Jedi Order during the Clone Wars, she saw their role in the Republic's military campaigns as a betrayal of their principles. Her extremist actions, including orchestrating the bombing of the Jedi Temple, demonstrated the dangers of dogmatic thinking when detached from compassion. Her fall was not just a personal failure, but a reminder that even the most disciplined minds could be swayed by doubt and disillusionment. Outside of the Jedi, Mirialans lived in structured communities built around shared values and collective growth. Their settlements often featured sacred sites where elders guided younger generations in both spiritual and physical training. Every action had meaning, every struggle had purpose. This way of life created individuals who rarely acted on impulse. Instead, every decision was carefully weighed, ensuring that one's actions aligned with both personal and cultural principles. In a galaxy filled with chaos, Mirialans sought harmony, not through dominance, but through discipline. Their influence within the Jedi Order and beyond showed that power was not measured by strength alone, but by the ability to endure, learn, and remain steadfast in one's convictions. Few civilizations in the galaxy maintained a structure as unique as the people of Utapau. On the surface, their homeworld appeared barren and desolate, covered in vast wind-swept plains and deep sinkholes that seemed to swallow the land itself. However, beneath this seemingly lifeless exterior lay vast underground cities, built to shield the population from the harsh elements and potential threats from off-world invaders. This civilization was not singular, but composed of two distinct yet interdependent species: the tall, long-lived Pau'ans and the shorter, more numerous Utapauans. Despite their stark physical differences, these two species formed a society that thrived on mutual reliance. The Pau'ans, also known as the Ancients, possessed elongated features, sunken eyes, and deeply lined faces, a result of their slow-aging biology. They often lived for centuries, accumulating knowledge and wisdom, which placed them in positions of governance and strategy. Their reserved and deliberate nature led them to take on roles as administrators, scholars, and diplomats, ensuring that Utapau's fragile balance remained intact. Meanwhile, the shorter Utapauans, stockier and more energetic, formed the backbone of daily life. They worked as traders, engineers, and farmers, maintaining the subterranean economy that kept their civilization running. Though they lacked the same longevity as their Pau'an counterparts, their adaptability and resourcefulness were invaluable. While some might assume a rigid caste system existed, the truth was more complex. The relationship between the two species was not one of domination, but cooperation, with each fulfilling vital roles necessary for survival. Utapau's location on the fringes of major galactic trade routes meant that while it remained isolated, it was still a tempting target. The sinkhole cities acted as natural fortresses, providing protection from external threats. However, this strategy was not always enough. During the Clone Wars, the planet found itself in the crosshairs of galactic conflict. General Grievous, seeking a stronghold from which to launch the Separatists' final offensives, invaded Utapau and turned its population into prisoners within their own cities. The Pau'ans, despite their political influence, were powerless to resist such overwhelming military force, and the Utapauans suffered under Separatist occupation. When Obi-Wan Kenobi arrived on Utapau in pursuit of Grievous, he found a planet on the verge of collapse. The carefully maintained balance between its two societies had been upended by war. However, rather than surrender to despair, the Utapauans provided covert assistance to Kenobi and the Republic forces. Their resilience, despite years of subjugation, highlighted their deep-seated commitment to preserving their home and way of life. The battle that followed, which saw Grievous fall at the hands of the Jedi, marked a brief moment of liberation before a new shadow fell upon them: the Galactic Empire. One of the most infamous Pau'ans to emerge in this new era was the Grand Inquisitor. A former Jedi temple guard, he abandoned his path following the rise of the Empire, embracing the dark side to hunt his former allies. While he did not represent his people as a whole, his presence reinforced the idea that Utapau, like many worlds, had been irrevocably changed by the galaxy's endless wars. Through centuries of cooperation and resilience, the Pau'ans and Utapauans survived by maintaining their careful symbiosis. But in a galaxy where war dictated the fate of entire civilizations, even the most stable societies found themselves standing on uncertain ground. The Togruta were often recognized for their contributions to the Jedi Order, but their culture extended far beyond the temple walls. Originating from the lush, predator-filled world of Shili, the Togruta developed a deeply ingrained pack mentality, shaped by their constant need for survival. Their homeworld, covered in vast grasslands and dense forests, was filled with apex predators, requiring Togruta to work together in order to hunt and avoid being hunted themselves. This cooperative nature was not merely a survival strategy. It became the core of their society. Unlike more individualistic species, Togruta saw strength in numbers. Their communities thrived on unity, with a natural emphasis on cooperation over competition. This mindset influenced everything from their hunting strategies to their political structures. Even as they expanded beyond their homeworld, forming settlements and establishing diplomatic relations with other species, they maintained this deep sense of collective identity. Togruta rarely functioned as loners, and those who did, such as those taken into the Jedi Order, were considered exceptions rather than the norm. One of the most distinctive traits of the Togruta was their striking physical appearance. Their skin came in vibrant shades of red, orange, and white, helping them blend into the natural landscapes of Shili. Their montrals, large, hollow appendages atop their heads, allowed them to sense movement through echolocation, giving them an edge when navigating both the wilds of their homeworld and the chaos of the wider galaxy. The patterns on their leku, or head tails, were unique to each individual, much like fingerprints among humans. Despite their highly traditional society, the Togruta were not isolationists. Unlike the fiercely independent Mandalorians or the secretive Chiss, they embraced diplomacy and expansion. Their adaptability allowed them to integrate into the broader galactic community without losing their cultural identity. Many Togruta became skilled negotiators, balancing their warrior instincts with political acumen. Over time, their people gained influence across multiple systems, securing a respected place in galactic affairs. Though Jedi like Ahsoka Tano and Shakti often defined the perception of Togruta in the galaxy, there were many figures outside of the Jedi Order who left their mark. Some Togruta rulers led entire planetary systems, ensuring their people maintained sovereignty even under the ever-expanding reach of the Republic and later the Empire. Others became influential warriors, diplomats, and strategists, proving that their talents extended beyond Force sensitivity. However, their tight-knit nature was both a strength and a vulnerability. During the rise of the Empire, entire Togruta populations were subjected to subjugation, particularly those who resisted imperial control. Their loyalty to their own people made them easy targets for oppression, as the loss of a leader or a hunting party had significant repercussions for the entire community. Some Togruta colonies, particularly those that had integrated into Republic territories, found themselves forced into servitude under imperial rule. Despite the challenges they faced, the Togruta endured. Their adaptability, unity, and warrior spirit ensured that they would never be forgotten in the annals of galactic history. Whether through warriors, diplomats, or rulers, their people left an undeniable imprint on the galaxy, carrying the lessons of Shili's wild landscapes with them wherever they went. The Chagrians, an amphibious species from the ocean-covered world of Champala, were known for their calm, logical nature and their deep-rooted sense of order. With blue skin, elongated head tails, and a natural resistance to extreme environments, they were uniquely adapted to both their homeworld's aquatic conditions and the political landscape of the galaxy. Unlike many other species that became known for their warrior traditions or mercenary cultures, the Chagrians built a reputation as bureaucrats, administrators, and lawmakers, positions that placed them in the heart of galactic politics, often at crucial moments in history. One of the most influential Chagrians in history was Maz Ameda, a figure who stood at the center of the Republic's fall and the Empire's rise. As vice chair of the Galactic Senate, he wielded significant power, often acting as Palpatine's enforcer within the Senate chamber. His presence was unmistakable, standing beside the Sith Lord as he declared the transformation of the Republic into the Galactic Empire. Many questioned how much Ameda truly knew about Palpatine's Sith identity, but one thing was certain: his loyalty to the new regime was absolute. Chagrians were often perceived as emotionless due to their disciplined approach to governance. Their society valued stability above all else, with a strong belief that order and structure were necessary for prosperity. This belief made them natural administrators, and their methodical thinking allowed them to rise to prominent positions in government, corporate sectors, and economic management. However, this same inclination toward order also made them susceptible to authoritarian rule. Many Chagrians willingly served the Empire, believing it to be the best path toward stability, regardless of its oppressive nature. Not all Chagrians, however, aligned with the Empire. While figures like Masa Meda remained deeply embedded in the imperial hierarchy, others resisted the regime in quieter ways. Some used their administrative roles to funnel resources to the rebellion, while others actively opposed imperial occupation on their homeworld. This divide created an internal conflict among their people, those who saw the Empire as a necessary force for galactic stability, and those who viewed it as a tyrannical power that had to be dismantled. Shambhala itself was largely spared from direct conflict during the Galactic Civil War, but it was not untouched by imperial influence. The Empire exploited the planet's vast oceanic resources, using its deep-sea reserves for industrial production. Some Chagrian officials allowed this exploitation in exchange for continued autonomy, while others fought to keep their world free from imperial control. After the fall of the Empire, the Chagrians faced a period of reckoning. Masa Meda, once the voice of the Emperor, found himself trapped in the ruins of imperial rule, ultimately forced to negotiate with the new republic to avoid execution. Meanwhile, many Chagrians who had supported the rebellion took on new roles in the restored republic, eager to repair the damage done by the previous regime. Despite their divided loyalties, the Chagrians endured as a species defined by intellect, strategy, and unwavering discipline. Their story was not one of warriors or conquerors, but of politicians, administrators, and the quiet power of those who shaped the fate of the galaxy through governance rather than battle. The Wookiees were a people shaped by the harsh deserts of Srilur, a world of endless dunes and treacherous wastelands. Their survival depended on their ability to endure brutal conditions, fostering a society that thrived on strength, cunning, and an unbreakable sense of loyalty to their clans. Unlike many other species that built centralized cities or grand civilizations, the Wookiees remained deeply rooted in a nomadic lifestyle, living in small tribal communities that followed ancient traditions passed down for generations. At the heart of Wookiees, spirituality was their veneration of moon gods, particularly Ki, after whom their species was named. Wookiees did not often use personal names within their own society, believing that their connection to their god was more important than individual identity. Instead, they identified themselves by their clan affiliations or by roles within their group. Some carried Hauk spheres, sacred objects used in divination rituals to seek guidance from the gods, shaping major decisions in their lives. Despite their religious devotion, the Wookiees were best known throughout the galaxy as ruthless mercenaries and pirates. Their combat skills and natural resilience made them sought-after warriors, often employed as enforcers for crime syndicates or as personal guards for powerful figures like Jabba the Hutt. While they lacked advanced technology of their own, they were highly adaptable, repurposing stolen or salvaged ships, weapons and armor to fit their needs. Many Wookiees left Srilur to seek fortunes among the stars, often falling into lives of raiding, smuggling, and mercenary work. One of the most infamous Wookiees in galactic history was Hondo Ohnaka, a pirate lord whose reputation for wit and deception made him a legend. As the leader of the Ohnaka gang, he ruled the Outer Rim with a mixture of charm and ruthless cunning, striking deals with Jedi, Sith, and bounty hunters alike, whenever it suited his interests. Unlike many pirates who relied solely on brute force, Hondo operated through strategy and negotiation, often tricking his enemies into underestimating him before taking everything they had. Even as the Clone Wars and later the Galactic Empire reshaped the galaxy, he managed to survive by shifting alliances and staying one step ahead of his rivals. While many saw Wookiees as little more than violent marauders, their culture had a strong code of loyalty. They placed great importance on trust between clan members, and betrayals were met with severe consequences. Within their own ranks, they upheld traditions of honor, recognizing strength and leadership above all else. However, this same code meant that outsiders were often treated with suspicion or outright hostility unless they proved themselves worthy of respect. The rise of the Galactic Empire had little direct impact on the Wookiee way of life, as they operated outside the influence of major political factions. While some served as mercenaries for imperial forces, many continued to work as pirates and privateers, thriving in the lawless regions of the Outer Rim. Even after the fall of the Empire, the Wookiees maintained their reputation as some of the most feared and respected warriors in the Underworld, ensuring their legacy endured well into the era of the New Republic. The Keldor were a species shaped by the extreme environment of their homeworld, Dorin, a planet that existed between two black holes, shielded from much of the outside galaxy by its unique atmospheric conditions. The dense, toxic atmosphere of Dorin was completely incompatible with most forms of life, requiring its people to wear breath masks and protective goggles when traveling beyond their world. For Keldor, the galaxy itself was a dangerous place, but they adapted through technology and tradition, making them both resilient and wise. One of the most fascinating aspects of Keldor culture was the Barando Sages, an ancient order that predated the Jedi and was deeply connected to the Force. Long before the Jedi Order reached Dorin, the Barando served as scholars, prophets, and advisors, using their sensitivity to the Force to predict natural disasters and offer guidance to their people. Unlike the Jedi, they focused on patience, foresight, and wisdom rather than combat, creating a tradition that centered around maintaining balance within their society. Though the Barando were largely seen as peaceful mystics, their influence shaped many of the greatest Force users to emerge from Dorin, including Plo Koon, one of the most respected Jedi Masters of the Clone Wars era. Plo Koon was a Keldor, who embodied both the Jedi Code and the teachings of the Barando, merging his people's reverence for prophecy with the discipline of a Jedi Guardian. He was known for his calm yet commanding presence, his tactical brilliance, and his unwavering sense of justice and honor. Unlike many Jedi who viewed the Force in rigid dualities of light and dark, Plo Koon and his people saw it as a living energy that required balance rather than suppression. The Keldor's perception of the Force was also unique due to their heightened senses. Their biology allowed them to detect subtle shifts in their surroundings, giving them an almost supernatural awareness that made them excellent warriors, pilots, and strategists. This ability, combined with their training in the Barando or Jedi traditions, allowed them to sense disturbances in the Force more acutely than many other species. Some Keldor were even known to possess rare abilities, such as Plo Koon's talent for using electric judgment, a form of lightning-based Force energy that did not corrupt its wielder like Sith lightning. Despite their deep spirituality and disciplined nature, the Keldor were not a pacifist people. While they preferred diplomacy and wisdom over conflict, they were more than capable of defending themselves when necessary. This was particularly evident during the Clone Wars, where many Keldor served in the Jedi Order or took on advisory roles within the Republic. Even after the rise of the Galactic Empire, remnants of the Barando sages continued their work in secrecy, preserving their knowledge despite the Jedi purge. Though often overlooked in galactic politics, the Keldor remained a civilization defined by their spiritual insight, discipline, and adaptability. Whether serving as Jedi, sages, or scholars, they carried a legacy that influenced the broader history of the Force, shaping the future of those who sought wisdom beyond war. There was no civilization in galactic history quite like the Yuuzhan Vong, a species so alien in nature that they defied everything known about the Force. Their existence was an anomaly, an aberration that even Jedi struggled to comprehend. Unlike every other species in the galaxy, they were completely disconnected from the Force, making them invisible to Jedi abilities and immune to most forms of Force-based manipulation. This absence of a Force presence made them one of the most terrifying enemies the galaxy had ever encountered. The Yuuzhan Vong rejected all forms of traditional technology, instead relying entirely on organic biotechnology. They grew their weapons, armor, and ships, forging a society where living organisms replaced machines. Their coral-like warships, massive and resilient, could heal from damage, while their warriors wielded amphistaffs, serpentine creatures that functioned as both whips and swords. Even their armor was a living organism, resistant to blaster fire and able to regenerate after sustaining damage. To the Yuuzhan Vong, using lifeless technology was heresy. Their entire culture revolved around pain, sacrifice, and devotion to their gods, believing that suffering purified the soul. Their arrival in the known galaxy was nothing short of apocalyptic. The Yuuzhan Vong War nearly shattered the New Republic, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Worlds were completely reshaped, cities reduced to rubble, and entire species faced extinction as the invaders terraformed planets to suit their needs. Their tactics were brutal, relying on relentless warfare, biological plagues, and psychological terror. Civilizations that resisted were enslaved or sacrificed, their people forced into grotesque rituals to appease the gods the Yuuzhan Vong worshipped. The war revealed weaknesses in the New Republic's ability to unite against a threat of this magnitude. The Jedi, despite their power, struggled against an enemy they could not sense. Traditional battle strategies failed, and political infighting only worsened the crisis. For a time, it seemed as if nothing could stop the Yuuzhan Vong from consuming the galaxy. Even Coruscant, the heart of galactic civilization, fell to the invaders, its surface reshaped into an organic, living nightmare. Yet despite their overwhelming strength, the Yuuzhan Vong were not invincible. Their deep hatred for technology and their rigid belief in pain as a path to enlightenment made them inflexible in the face of unexpected tactics. Over time, the New Republic, along with a fractured but determined Jedi Order, found ways to turn the tide. The discovery that the Yuuzhan Vong were not always disconnected from the Force, but had been stripped from it, led to deep cracks in their faith. Leaders began to question their gods, and internal conflicts arose. In the end, the war left both sides devastated. Billions perished, and the galactic map was forever altered. The Yuuzhan Vong, once conquerors, became refugees, broken and searching for redemption. Instead of being wiped out, they were given a chance to rebuild far from the worlds they had destroyed. Though their empire crumbled, their legacy remained. A reminder that even the strongest civilizations could fall, and that no power in the galaxy was absolute.